So here we are, we either pulled in or back into the disposal facility. Some disposal facilities will allow you to keep the vacuum or the truck on, others will actually shut it off. So just keep in mind that if you run out of air, that'll play a big part of disposal, especially with the air valves. So some of the issues that you want to look out for when pulling into the disposal facility, unloading and loading, first and foremost is be aware of your surroundings. Disposal facilities tend to have hoses or other equipment laying around. Make sure you have a clear line of sight, a clear path when you're backing up the equipment to be safely offloaded. Also, if you have to blow off the equipment or provide vacuum to the equipment, make sure all your connections and hoses are hooked up accordingly, hooked up correctly, and they're free of leakage. Pulling in and pulling out of the disposal areas, just be patient, be calm, and know that if you can correct as many times as you need to, as long as you're doing it safely. In the back of the truck, you have an inlet hose and a discharge hose. The inlet hose is used to basically vacuum up the material, bring the material into the tanker. The discharge hose is basically meant to offload or discharge the material. When you're traveling with a load, your over-the-road valve will be closed at all times. This will keep any liquid from free-flowing back into the main vacuum system. Once you're ready to offload, you open the valve. Your vacuum system, you got P for pressure, V for vacuum, and of course in the center is neutral. You have the P for pressure, V for vacuum. So if you don't really know, that's pressure, that's vacuum. They both have stopping points. So in the middle will be neutral. You'll realize this once pressure gets released from the tank. When the pressure gets released from the tank, there's a breather, or you'll hear it and possibly feel it get released. Whether it be 6-inch hose that you're gonna run out to, if you're in a pit, or you gotta reduce it down from a 4-inch to a 3-inch, you're gonna take the corresponding adapters, hook them up to the discharge point, and then once you get the approval from the disposal facility personnel, you're gonna go ahead and open up your air valve and your manual valve to start the discharge. Opening for discharge, and then you have the discharge, which are labeled on the truck, discharge and intake, air valve. So they both open, and then right then the material starts flowing out. When you hook up your discharge hose, ensure it's a good discharge hose, whether the one you supply or the disposal facility supplies. Make sure it doesn't cause any leaks. If it is leaking, ensure that you're over a controlled area that'll still lead into the disposal area. The valves are open and the discharge is complete. What you're gonna do is request to have your tank washed out. Some disposal facilities provide a water source to you. Other ones ask them to make sure if they have one that you can be washed out. If not, it'll come back to the shop. If it's free flowing liquid and it can be moved quickly, you can start from the front and work your way from the front to the back because it's not gonna be piling up. However, if you have thick material that will pile up, you always wanna start from the rear of the tanker closest to the discharge point so that we can clear the discharge line, freeing it of any obstruction. Then you move to the second hatch. You wash from the second hatch to the first hatch, and then you come back and wash from the first hatch, continuing on all the way to the fourth hatch, third hatch, second hatch, first hatch. What you're doing is pushing that material down and giving it a smooth surface to make the clean out a little bit easier. An important note, if you are offloading and you already have the discharge valve open and pouring it out, if you want to open up the hatches to get a start on rinsing down the tank, make sure those ears are not fully removed until you can tell that the hatch is loose. There could be built up pressure. If you go to release them, the hatch could pop open on you. If by some chance it needs to come back to the shop to get washed out, a vehicle clean out sheet or form needs to be filled out, also known as a VCO. This particular tanker has side rails, so you don't need a fall protection or lanyard to catch you. The side catwalk is kind of very narrow, so you gotta watch your toes or watch your feet. Make sure you don't trip while you're up here, twist your ankle. Stainless steel tankers do not have a rail or foot rail, so at those tankers you will need to have fall protection, a harness on at all times when you're moving on top of that to keep you from possibly falling. Once your clean out is complete, close the valves, disconnect the hose, and then the disposal facility personnel will give you the okay to pull out. So once the material or liquid or whatever disposal material you loaded onto the tanker is loaded, keep in mind when you're traveling down the road, it will make a sloshing or pushing and pulling sensation on the tanker. Baffles will help minimize that, but you're still gonna feel it, especially in the winter time. You take that to consideration, because last thing you wanna do is that surge of liquid or waste pushing you through a stoplight or pulling you back when you should be shifting. The baffles help, but don't solely depend on them. Still act accordingly, still be aware of your surroundings. Make sure you dry out the moisture because it can cause corrosion, it can cause rust to form, or even frozen materials that get caught during the winter time. There are two types of systems. You got the vane pump and the blower. You got to make sure you drain out the secondary moisture trap, which is located close to the blower or vane pump system. You put these into the system, you don't want to just throw the water in there. You want to put it in a spray bottle or a Hudson sprayer or a handheld sprayer, just something you can spray it and mist 6 to 8 ounces of material through the line so it can coat the system. Always dry out your blower. If these procedures aren't followed, it can lead to damage in the equipment, postponing projects, time delays, time and money to get the issue corrected and or fixed. If you don't know, ask. It's important. Communication is key. It's always better to ask and find out the right answer than assume you can figure it out or assume you know the right answer and an incident occur, damage to property, injury to yourself. Always ask. Communication is key. I mean, different tankers, there's some tankers that have 3 hatches that have a baffle in the center, so those are kind of different. So for those, if we had to wash them, we'd have to actually wash the center, wash around the center, and then go either to the left or to the right, and basically wash that towards the center and then go the opposite direction, and then once again wash out inward to make sure they're clean. There's some other tankers that only have 1 hatch and a discharge at the end, so you have to kind of reach as far as you can to the front and to the back.